good to be together. Thank you for coming out to this. I think it's going to be a really important time for us. Uh, Before we get started, we got a few announcements, of course. This Sunday is special missions contribution. And if you didn't know, of course, you probably do know, we are collecting our $100 challenge, and that is going towards the South American Missions Society, SAMS, which disperses the funds to South America once a year. And we all look at our budgets and we see, what the needs are down there, and we do the best that we can to support our missionaries and facilities down in South America. And more recently, we have a relationship with the Caribbean Missions Council, and we also come on Caribbean, and some of the funds also go to the Caribbean in support of the Caribbean, their mission efforts as well. So a lot of what we already know, but we're going to have a guest speaker, David Pineda. And if you don't know David, David is the director of the South American Missions Council. And he's done a fantastic job, especially through a lot of the transition that we've had, combining the southern cone and the northern part of South America. So he's been a part of that whole experience, and he's just done a great job. But he's one of the kindest, sweetest men I've ever met. He's amazing. And so I really look forward to his time with us on Sunday. Now, there's no Saturday night service. So we won't have a Saturday night service. We're all going to stuff into this room. It'll be awesome. It'll be great. It's cool outside, so be grateful for that it's not in the middle of the summer that we're doing this. Yeah, because the ACs don't quite keep up with us. But it'll be a great time of celebration and giving and hearing a lot of good news from the mission field. So it'll be awesome. Awesome time. All church is next Wednesday as well. Let me say it again. All church next Wednesday as well. Okay? I know we're not used to all those all churches, but if you were coming from a different congregation, you did all church every Wednesday. So this will be 11 instead of 10 in the year. All right? Okay, it'll be great. What's that? I won't let it happen again. It'll never again until we do it again. Right. So just mark that in your calendars and just know that will be more typical of what we're used to. Won't have a meal. Sorry. But it'll just be us. It'll be awesome. Singles. We have a Friendsgiving at the Palanzi home this Friday at 6 p.m. And I'm sure there will be karaoke. It just goes without saying. If you're going to go to no karaoke? It goes without saying. There probably will be. It's a good chance that if you got a song on your heart, you can sing it there. Okay, yeah. Children 10 years and older are welcome to join and to be a part of the experience. If you have younger children than that, reach out. We're trying to put together childcare for the kids that are younger than that so that the singles can have a great time together. And this is for older, younger singles, all the singles. And now there's also a singles Bible talk next week, 11/20, Thursday night at Barnes & Noble's. Okay, so just put that in your calendar. If it doesn't apply to you, don't pay attention. Okay, it's awesome. And you can't go if you're married. Not invited. I got to tell the Whitneys that because they'll just show up. Nope. Can't go to that one. I'm sorry. They're like, come on. All right. And I'm going to remind you over and over again, December 17th, make sure that's in your calendar because we have what? Christmas banquet. We have chosen our Santa. You will not know about it until the 17th. Santa has been, he's on his way now. Yeah. He's starting his engines on his sleigh. And yep. And that's going to be at FGCU. So it's a little bit different than what we're used to in Naples, but this will be in FGCU. It'll be awesome. Amen. Okay. So you always get email of the announcements and also the prayer requests. So we ask that you'll look at those prayer requests, pray for those prayer requests, and I'll share good news as we see God answering prayers. Amen? Amen. Okay. We're going to make a little change here, transition into a little lesson here. Isaiah 30, verse 21, it reads, "Whether you turn to the right or to the left, your ears will hear a voice behind you saying, 'This is the way, walk in it.'" What a great scripture. So good. As a church, we're in a season right now. I think a lot of us that we helped put this facility together about 11 years ago, 10 years ago now. we've seen a lot changes. We were probably about 40 in the congregation at the time. One little section here on Sunday, and then we had to order more chairs, and then we got more chairs in here, and then we ended up there was too many of us, so we didn't really know what to do until COVID hit, right? And then after COVID, we went to 3 services, and now we're in 2 services. But it has been a consistent challenge, and it's always on our minds of what we're going to do next, what's going to happen next. But I think it's really important for us to not overreact and not panic, because I think of this scripture in Isaiah, and it's like, if we go to the right or the left, your ears will hear a voice behind you saying, this is the way, walk in it. We've got to be in a place where we can hear that. So I think a lot of us are singing this song, should I stay or should I go now, right? Should I stay or if I stay, there will be trouble. If I go, there will be double. Like, we're not sure exactly what to do. And if you're in these board meetings and the family group leaders meetings, it's just like no one wants to make a definitive answer, because we're like, should we stay or should we go? I'm not sure. If we go, maybe it's going to be worse. If we stay, it could be really bad. So we have a tendency to maybe panic a little bit. Like, what are we going to do? We know that our lease is going to be up in November of next year. We probably need to let our landlord know by March on what we're going to do. So, yeah, it can cause a little anxiety. I'm going to be honest with you. I do a little bit more itching on my beard and breathing heavy. But the thing is, we can't move without God. Like, we don't want to move without God. The people in Exodus 13 are following a cloud in the sky when they're in the desert. And they learn to only move when God moves. If God stays, what do? They stay. If God starts to move, what do? They wrap up their tents, they pack up, and they follow God. It's a great lesson for us. It took patience, right? It took intention. It probably took a little conversation, right? Don't panic, bro. I know that cloud's been there for a month, but this is God. This is what we need to do. We need to wait on God. It takes patience. But the thing that was evident was that God's presence was there. And that's what we want. Exodus 33:15 says, then Moses said to him, if your presence does not go with us, do not send us up from here. Like, if your presence is not with us, I don't want to move. Like, we want to do what God wants us to do. So we have a tendency to muscle things, to make it happen, to be more creative or work outside the lines, when really I think God is saying, I've got a plan for you. I'm going to whisper this in your ear. You will hear me. So as we think about our future, we don't move just because the lease is up or it feels right. We move if and only if God makes it clear. So we did something in our church. We had a luncheon, future church home luncheon, and a lot of you showed up and helped out. We did a big brainstorming session, and I promised that I would give you a little bit of, kind of the outcome of that. We had a lot of data, all these sheets of paper that I went through, and what I was trying to do is trying to find the pulse of the church. Not necessarily this is the direction that we're going to go because the people have spoken, but more of how are we all feeling as a family. That's what we want to do, because if we are going to go in a direction, it would be good for the leadership to know and a lot of us to know what we're getting ourselves into. If most of the church doesn't want to go in that direction, maybe God's saying, maybe that's not a good way to travel, right? But it might be a good way to travel. So it's good to get a pulse. So we had some really neat findings. I'm not going to go through everything, but I'll give you some of the outcomes here. 3 of the 5 main groups and discussions said that they'd like to purchase a central location with Solomon. That's the number one in our line items, okay? And that was it was the number one of the top 3. Okay, 4 of the 5 said that they'd like to stay and build multiple services and build into the ability to afford a location, which that's fair, right? It's fair. Let's stay here. Let's get 3 services, get 4 services going, and let's get enough population in our congregation to go ahead and do what we'd like to do. Okay, that's an option, right? Three of the top three in the top three of the five said, let's split services. Naples, Fort Myers, let's plant Naples. Let's have two services. And you'll never guess where that came from. A lot of people in Naples. Because you probably drove an hour tonight, right? Or 45 minutes. That's real, right? That's real. I'm 4 or 5 minutes away, and literally door to door. With traffic, okay, 7. And 2 of the 5 said, let's rent a larger, more central location that we can all come together. So here's some of the raw data that stood out, okay? Owning a building, okay? So here's just some of the notes that came through, some of the data. Marketing ability, curb appeal. We know we don't have curb appeal here. So if someone walks into this building, we know they were invited, right? They were invited, or they saw us on social media and they came in, right? Curb appeal, investment in membership and community. It shows that we're serious about this location. Central location makes it better for everyone. So obviously we don't want to move further north. We want to get more central towards the Estero area. Equity, trust for visitors, that they know that we're not going anywhere and they can trust that we're here for the long haul. Income opportunities. There's other opportunities that we have that comes with a building. We can rent the space out. We can open a coffee shop, or we can do that. We can do childcare, open up a nursery or a what do you call those? Preschool, right? Outreach, excitement, community impact, identity in the community, kind of city on a hill, a footprint. These were the things that were expressed. Security, this security that comes with having a place. One church, one service all together, and a big resounding line item was that our kids will be able to build on a legacy. Have something that they grew up and being a part of, and if they stayed here in Southwest Florida, then they get to watch their kids, you know what I mean, be raised in that same place and be able to add to this building and, just a part of the experience. Now, also, okay, so there were some downsides to that as well. Expenses, right? Expenses that are unknown, repairs, making sure that we have enough volunteers to take care of the place. So there were other things that comes along with it. And if you get an existing used building, you're buying someone's used problems, like a used car. So we knew that, that's a part of it and all that. So, and then someone said, then you're stuck there. That's true. Like, you choose that location. If things change in that neighborhood, you might be stuck in an area that, has something going on that you don't like or whatever. Okay. So, rent another location like ours, but bigger. Money for improvements could prevent us from remodeling a larger rental space. And that's real. So if you get a larger place, it costs us more, but we'd also it'd have to be a cash. It would be cashed for the upgrades and getting it prepared to have service there, and that can't be on loan. So that would have to be savings that we'd have enough money to remodel it. Does that make sense? If you buy something, then you can also build into the loan some remodeling expenses. So you can't do that obviously with a rental. So sharing or renting a facility could increase the workload, AV, Kingdom Kids, etc., but it gives more opportunities to serve and be involved. So a lot of the things that come from owning a building will also come with having a larger space that we can call our own, maybe look for a place that has curb appeal, renting a big box location or something like that. But, of course, the challenge is to have enough money to remodel it and make it ours. Okay. Staying and adding services. It sounds simple enough, and I think a lot of us are like, hey, we just painted, and we've done some things in here and freshened the place up, got some TVs and got rid of the projector, all that kind of thing. That's great, but it does stretch our volunteering and our resources. So when you go to multiple services, it's hard to just have kids, Kingdom Kids on just one service, especially if you go to 3 or 4. So you would want to make sure these so sometimes the volunteers get overworked, and that stretches them. Shorter services, losing connection with the others that go to different services. And I think we've already felt that. We have a lot of people that go to Saturday night service. We don't really see them on Sundays, and you're going, are they even Christians anymore? Oh, yeah, that's right. They go to Saturday night service. So I love a lot of you that kind of bounce back and forth, which is probably the best way to do it. But some, you just kind of fall into a groove, or you get a job on Sunday morning because you go to Saturday night service, you're a nurse or whatever. So there's an opportunity for losing connection, and so multiple services. Um, but that also gives more opportunity for reach out. If you've got 3 or 4 different services, then you say, hey, we got 4 services going on. When are you available? Can't use the excuse, I do something in the morning because we have a night service. Can't use that excuse that it's too early because we have a noon service, whatever that is. So you can help encourage more people to come out to church because of the multiple services. Um, so this was that organic growth into a congregation who can afford to purchase. Is just, if we got multiple services, then we're organically growing, and maybe we've got 350 to 400 on a Sunday or Saturday night and a Sunday that now has an income stream enough to where we can actually have a little bit more choice. And I get that. It's real. And a new campus in Naples promotes reach out for Naples with neighbors. Yeah, right? It's hard when you're reaching out to a neighbor and you live an hour away and you say, hey, would you like to come to church with me? And what do they say? Oh, where's your church? They say, oh, it's right. You say it's right off of Gladiolus, just south of Gladiolus and 41. And they go, what's Gladiolus? Well, it's in Fort Myers. Oh, I don't really go to Fort Myers. How far into Fort Myers? Well, yeah, central Fort Myers. That's tough. I'll drive you, but it's an hour drive? Yeah, it is difficult. I totally get it. That's real. So, so many churches, it's hard to say, hey, come to my church in Fort Myers when there might be a church down the street in Naples. So it's hard to reach out to our neighbors, hard to have impact sometimes. And even if it's not, it's hard to believe it's not because you are far away. It's just real. And if you wanted to come here and serve on a Wednesday night, it's an hour. I know we alternate men and women midweeks, and we have separate service because during the season, you could be in a 45-minute traffic jam, right? Trying to come from Naples to Fort Myers. So that's all real. And I totally get it. So these are things that we've been talking about. So someone said satellite churches, like Fort Myers, Naples, and Cape, having 3 satellite, churches, and maybe multi-streaming the message. Those were things that were talked about, just data. I'm not saying that that's what we're going to do, but it was an idea because a lot of the campuses around us do that. They'll have the message, but they'll have local singing, they'll have a local communion, all the other things, but then everyone's watching the same message. And it's short, and whatever. I'll go shorter. I'm just kidding. So I promise. Yep, we'll get it under 40 minutes. But some of the fears were splitting up, the isolation of different locations, and you losing our family feel. And one resounding worry was the kids. Like, our kids will not be able to see each other every Sunday in these classes and grow up together. So when you split, you may have, 5 kids in Naples and 30 kids in Fort Myers and 15 or 20 kids. You know what I mean? So that was a little bit of a fear too. And then of course resources, right? Serving in those different campuses to take care of the children and doing all the different things like singing and communion and all that. So it's real. So that's the data. And that's real. And that's what you've said. This is nothing I came up with. This is what came from that brainstorming session, some of the worries, some of the, opportunities, difficulties, hurdles, and it's real. And these are things that we all need to think about and pray about and ask God to whisper in our ear, move us in a direction, because we are going to have to make decisions soon. We don't ever want to, make decisions out of panic, fear. That never works out well. But decisions based on faith typically work out pretty good. So that's what we want to move into, is that area that we're faithful and we're advancing the kingdom of God with confidence. Whatever we choose, we go, hey, we're in it as a family. This is what we've chosen right now, and this is the direction at which we're going to travel, and it's going to be awesome, until God whispers in our ear and says, hey, it's time to change again. So one of the opportunities that we have, and this is something that we've talked about quite a bit, but we had this time that was set up very similar to this one, that Doug Foltz would come in and do some a lot better explanation than I can give. Unfortunately, he came down with the flu, and he was sick in bed. I felt awful for you. So we said, hey, we're going to reschedule this in the future, but it's more timely now than I think it was before, honestly, because we're having to make decisions now. And there is an opportunity that we've had and that we took advantage of at one time. We bought a piece of land. We started doing a ground up build. COVID and the hurricane hit. Prices went from $1.5 million build to like $6 million. We got priced out of the market. We tried to be creative and think about preschool and all that, but the size of the location we just couldn't make it work. So we ended up selling that lot. We're going to probably close in March, which is great news. We'll be made whole. It'll be awesome. It's great news. But what do we do next? So Solomon has made some changes recently, which are great changes. It's solidifying their organization, and we're excited about that. But it also calls us to really invest, and be a part of the Solomon Foundation, a partnership, partnering up, and that's a big part of what they do is partnering with churches. So they really take that seriously, probably more serious now than ever. And Doug is going to speak to a lot of those things. He's going to do a presentation, but also there'll be a time that we'll be able to ask some questions, and if there's something burning that you'd like to ask, he's going to be here to answer those questions. So Doug Foltz is going to make his way up here, and he's going to do a presentation for us, and really grateful that you've come and spent this time with us. Thank you, and thank you for dinner. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you. You guys got a lot of things to decide, and you're not the only church in America that's got big decisions to make. I'm in almost every weekend. I'm in a different church, and we've got some field guys all across the country, and we get together and we talk about what's happening out there on the ground. And I'm telling you, God is moving in a big way in our country right now, and mainly through a lot of college campuses and younger people. And you all know a little bit about that, don't you? I think you all know a little bit about college ministry. How many of you all came to know the Lord when you were in college, and the church? And so it's a lot of you have that experience. I think we might be on the cusp of a national revival right now. And I'm talking on the level of a great awakening kind of a thing. There are some major things happening in the country. The way it's affecting us is that these churches are growing by leaps and bounds. I'll tell you about one, Surprise, Arizona, The Gathering. They started 4 years ago. They do not have a location. They get a auditorium 4 hours a week. 4 hours a week, so all they get it. And in 4 years, they're running 4,000 people. They went everywhere looking for somebody to step up with them and say, man, we got to get us a place. We got to get us a place. And nobody would touch him. Not banks, nobody. We're the only ones who would touch them. We're getting ready to close next week on their new facility and get them in that thing. And we're seeing that kind of thing happen across the country, just explosive growth. Usually, we have about $100 million of loan requests sitting at our door. Churches come and say, we're growing, we got to get a location. We don't want to stunt the growth. Help us do something, $100,000. Right now we're sitting on $100 million, $300 million now is what the requests are. I used to get maybe 3 or 4 requests a month. I'm getting sometimes 5 requests a week from churches saying, we got to do something. God is moving across the country. So the way this works is we're what's called a church extension fund. We're not here to make your mind up for you. We're not here to tell you guys what to do. That's the job of you all coming together, and however you do, and your leadership praying and feeling this is what God is leading us to do. Our job is to come alongside you and help you do what you believe God is calling you to do. And one of the biggest ways we do that is by providing the financing to get that sort of thing done. So the way it works is we've got people across the country, just about 8,000 people in all 50 states who have invested with us. If you have money in the bank right now, you have an investment because the bank is paying you a little bit of a return, and they're taking your money and they're lending it out to different institutions, right? And what they get from the mortgage or from the payments is what they pay you back in interest. We do the same thing, except what we invest in are churches and Christian ministries. And so what we're doing is we're trying to get people across the country to say, you know what? I want to put my money with Solomon because I want to get and be a part of this movement that God is bringing out across this country. So right now we have close to 8,000 investors and $1.2 billion is invested with the Solomon Foundation. Extension funds have been around for decades. They were established in the early 30s after the stock market crashed. The government rewrote all of the security laws, and they call it the Security Act of 33 and 34. And that thing, if you print it out, it's about that thick. And if you dig way down in the middle of it somewhere, there's a little paragraph that talks about extension funds. And it basically says that religious organizations, denominations, affiliations can establish a fund for the purpose of making loans and taking deposits. And then it says within their affiliation or their denomination. And so a lot of the denominations have their own funds. Baptists have their funds. Presbyterians have theirs. Methodists have theirs. They don't loan to each other. They just loan within their affiliation or denomination. We work within the Restoration Movement churches. And our fund, because our churches are growing rapidly, in fact, New York Times a while back said that the independent Christian church, of which I come out of, is the fastest growing evangelical movement in America for the past 20 years. It's growing rapidly. And so ours is the fastest growing extension fund in American history. We are only the third to ever to grow above $1 billion in total assets. We're the third largest, and the other two ahead of us took 40 years to grow to $1 billion. We did it in 11 years. And that's because our churches are growing, and our churches are expanding, and we're just trying to keep up with it. So what I want to challenge you guys to think about tonight is this. Would you be willing to partner with us and help build these churches across the country? Now, you all have a big decision coming up. You're thinking about what are we going to do? And you might be coming to us and saying, we want you to help us purchase this. We want you to help us build this. We want you to help us renovate this. So we've got stacks of churches, okay? How do we know and how do we choose which ones we're going to get to first? How do we know? Well, we're looking for what's called partners, not just users, right? Not customers, but partners who say, we want to come alongside you and help you build these buildings across the country that can facilitate this growth. And so the first thing we take a look at when we look at all the churches that are looking for loans is we say, are they partners? Have people in those churches, have they said, you know what, I want to invest with the Solomon Foundation because I know that I'm not only going to get a good rate of return on my money, but that money is going to be used to help build churches across the country. And so those are the ones that float to the top of the list. And so as you guys begin to think about what you're going to do, I want to invite you to jump on board with this. So and I'm not doing this slides up because I want to get us out here on time. No. What I want you to do is on the table here, there's a little brochure, and I just want to kind of walk through this with you guys, okay? Now, the thing that is the most popular thing we have right now, and this is what I really want to draw your attention to, is something called the Anytime Access. How many of you have an emergency fund in a bank somewhere? How many of y'all have that, right? You'll go through Financial Peace. Did y'all do that? You know, Dave Ramsey says get you an emergency fund, and it's probably sitting in a bank somewhere. It might be in a high yield savings account. Is it liquid? So you can get it out anytime, right? You can pull it out. Okay, that's what this is. Okay, this is a liquid, no term account, except the difference is it pays really, really good. If you have $2,000 that you would put into that emergency fund that you can get out anytime access, we'll pay you 3.69%, which is really good return for $2,000. If you have $25,000, we'll pay 4.19% on that. And if you have 75,000, we'll pay you 4.69%. Our new our new CEO, he came out of the banking world. In fact, he he had a, they had bought like 11 or 12 banks. They went public. He got to ring the bell at the New York Stock Exchange. He's really well tied in the banking world across the country. And he wanted to provide the best no-term liquid account in America. And that's what this is. We can't find any examples that's paying any better than this anywhere in the country. And so we're very serious about raising up partners who will help us build these churches. So what we wanted to do is take away all of the different reasons why someone wouldn't do this. Because if we pay you a better rate than what you're getting, and you know it's being used to build churches, why wouldn't you do that? If you and some of you here might be in the bank. Any bankers in here? Yeah, I don't want to step on your toes. Great institutions. I got a lot of friends who are bankers. They do a lot of great work. They help people start small businesses, and it's very, very important work, isn't it? If your money's in a bank, it might be building a really nice nail salon, and that makes my wife very happy. I want you to know that. Or they might be building a really nice donut shop, which you can tell makes me very happy, right? You put it with us, we're going to build churches. And that makes Jesus happy, right? Now maybe you don't have $2,000. Maybe that's too big. You can actually open, now you're not going to get the same rate over here, but if you turn on the back, there's a note term here. And you can actually open a note term there with $250. And so that lets most people that can say, you know what, I can't put a bunch in right now, but I can do something. And so you can actually start one with $250. And then these right here, these are sort of like CDs. The 1 year, the 3 year, the 5 year. The difference between these and a CD, if you open up a CD at a bank, once you open it up, you got to leave it alone, right? You can't add to it. If you got more money, you got to open up another CD. With these, you can add to them anytime you want to during the term, and you can also pull the interest off the top of them during the term. So they're a little bit different from a CD. We call them time certificates. If you have an old IRA sitting out there somewhere, there's well over $1 trillion of these retirement accounts from people who used to work someplace and they've not really touched them, and it's just sitting out there and it's not helping anybody. We can help you roll that over and put it into one of these vehicles here. If you wanted to open up a retirement account, we have the same kind of accounts that you're going to find in a bank, a place like that. So there's lots of different options that we have for you, and we would love for you to partner with us. And then when you do open up an account, what it will do, it will say, what church are you a part of? And you'll want to put this church, because that way this church gets credit for it. And then when it comes around time for us to take a look at who we're going to give those loans to, this guy's going to be calling me and telling me we're ready to go. So then I've got to have a good argument to our loan committee to say we need to work with this church right now, because they're not just users. They are partners who are helping us build churches across the country. Does that make sense? Yeah. So it's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. So what kind of questions do you all have that I can help you with? Any kind of questions? It's very easy to open an account. One of the ways you can do it is fill out one of those little cards on the table and leave that with me. And I can reach out to you and I can answer any questions you might have. Another easy way you can do that is you can go to our website, thesolomonfoundation.org. It's listed there in your brochure. And you can go in and it says invest now, and it will prompt you through. And it's very easy. It will set up an electronic bank transfer that it can pull money right out of your bank account and put it right into a Solomon account and get you a better rate of return. I have a lot of small businesses that invest with us. I have a good friend. He has the largest chiropractic service in the world. Just spent the night at his house a couple weeks back, and I was telling him about the anytime access. He said, "Are you kidding me?" He says, I've got like $800,000 right now sitting in a bank account, and it's drawing me 1%. And so I can move this over, and I can move it over overnight and move it back and forth and get 469. I said, absolutely. He says, I'm doing it tomorrow. We have a lot of contractors that have a lot of their money sitting with us that they can get access to, and it draws them a lot more money that way. But it's very easy to do that online, or you can call our office. There's a phone number there, and ask to speak to someone in investments, and they can help you as well. So, yes, ma'am. You can do a 401k rollover. What we would need to do is we'd need to get your information. Huh? Yes, yes, we can roll those over. And what I'll need to do is get your information and then have one of our investment officers reach out to you because they have the forms that you would need to get that done. They can walk you through that. hmm We don't have cards, no. Yeah, it's just going to do it. You go in. If you make the request, you can go in. It's going to give you a queue, and it's going to give you a password that you can get to your accounts, and you can change and you can move money around, open things up, move things. And if you make a request by 4 o'clock on, uh, on like Monday, 8 a.m. on Tuesday, it's going to be sitting in your bank account. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Say that again. Which churches? Yeah, well, they've got to have restoration movement principles, okay? Now, restoration movement is interesting. We're not a denomination. We're an affiliation of churches that have a common belief system and a common way of practicing. So when I go in and I work with a church, I want to know, first of all, that they believe in the authority of Scripture and they believe the Scripture is God's Word. I want to know, do you have elders in place? That's very important for us. There's a plurality of leadership. I want to know, do you baptize by immersion? Okay? And we'll get into discussions on for the remission of sins, things like that. Third, but the next thing I want to know is do you have communion? And we want our churches to have communion on a weekly basis. And so those are some of the criteria that we use. Does that make sense to you? Yeah. We work with independent Christian churches, of which I'm a part. We work with the non-instrumental Church of Christ. In fact, we've become one of the largest lenders to African American churches in America, mainly through our relationship with the African American Church of Christ. And by the way, there is a meeting going on right now in Atlanta. There's a church there called Renaissance Church of Christ. And you know, the non-instrumental church has been separate from the independent church for a long time. And it's especially been true in more of the African American churches. They've really been isolated. They're coming out of a lot of the legalism. The service tonight, there are leaders from the independent Christian church and leaders specifically from the African American Church of Christ, and they're joining hands and they're undoing 1906, and they're saying, "You're my brother now. We're going to work together and put away this division." Isn't that awesome? It is a fantastic night that's going on there right now. And a lot of that happened. A lot of that happened because we jumped in to that group of churches and really built relationships. And so we've had a very big part in seeing the Church of Christ really step over and become more and more part of the rest of the restoration movement. It's been really good to see. Yes, ma'am. We don't have a number right now. Really, there's two things, okay? One is we want to see that the church as a whole is really partnering with us, okay? And it's hard to put a percentage, a number on that. Uh, I want to be able to take it to a committee and say this church is really going in the right direction. This is a movement, and this church really believes in what we're doing, and they're going to walk with us. They're not just going to be a user; they're going to be a partner. Uh, it also depends on where we have what kind of excess cash we have to lend out. Okay, So let's say that you have a need and you need to move pretty quick, but the excess cash that we have, see, we have to keep reserves. We have to keep. We're regulated by all 50 states. We have a lot more regulators than banks have, and we've got to pass California and we got to pass Florida. Do you think they treat churches a little differently in California than they do in Florida? Yeah, and we got to make sure we're good in all 50 states. So we got to keep a ton of reserves. But the extra money we have is what we lend out. But if we don't have a lot of extra money, then we might require that church to raise the amount of deposits equal to their loan. Okay? It's all dependent on what we have at the time. And because you can't lend what you don't have, can you? That's right. And so we don't want to overextend ourselves and put ourselves in a position that we overcommit ourselves. Is that a good enough answer? Okay. Yes. Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's true. That's true. It happens, you know. And there are really good, and by the way, there are really good high yield savings accounts out there. We've just done our best, and you might come up to me afterwards and say, I found one that's got better rate than you. There may be one out there, and if there is, let us know because we're going to outdo them. Because our commitment is to have the best return of any financial institution in America. Because that's important to us because we want our investors to be well taken care of because we've got an important thing that we're trying to do. And I want to emphasize too, people sometimes say, well, are you safe? I mean, what kind of group are you? I mean, what are you backed up by? So let me explain that a little bit to you. What you always want to look at when you're looking at something, if it's safe, you want to look at track record and you want to know what's going on. Well, first of all, how safe are our loans? Well, the typical bank is going to have between 10 and 12% of their loans is going to be in default. I mean, that's just kind of where it is, okay? And they've got situations. Ours is around 3%. It's much less because churches pay their bills. Um, we have done 850 loans in our existence. We've had less than 5 that we took the buildings back, okay? Now, we never did a hostile foreclosure. It's always been a church that's really, really struggled, and they said, hey, we just can't do this anymore, and they signed a deed in lieu, okay? So it's been those kinds of situations. Usually when a church is getting in trouble, we come in and we coach them, and we help them, and we reorganize them, and we do a debt restructure, and we get them healthy to where they can function again. We've done that many, many, many times. But here's the thing on church extension funds, too. How many banks have closed down? A lot. So you would think that church extension funds would be the same way. So there's been about 100 church extension funds in existence, okay, over the years. There have only been 2 in all that time that shut down and couldn't pay their people. And they were both of the reasons were because they got outside the parameters of what extension funds are supposed to do. Both of them, one was a Baptist fund and one was Anderson Church of God fund. And both of them invested in apartment complexes. And what happened in 2008? They lost their shirt. The folks in the Anderson Church of God are actually in prison now because of some things. But other than that, you've never had extension funds not pay their people because there's a Christian mindset. It's not business, it's ministry. And so we're going to, our first core value is honor God in everything we do. And we're committed to taking care of our investors. Yes, ma'am. Yes. That's where a lot of our investments are. The churches are invested. You have investment money with us here at the church here. Oh yeah, I was with the church on Sunday that has close to $1 million with us. We have several. We have our largest investor is Christ Church of the Valley. It's a church. It's an independent Christian church. They have several campuses. They run over 50,000 in attendance every Sunday, and they have about 32 million invested with us right now. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep, sure do. Yes. Did you have a question? Oh, oh yes. Yep. So you're asking, what do we bring to the church as an advantage? Okay, you're going to have a health. You're going to have a healthy pastor, and I'll tell you why. The thing that'll bring a loan down in our world is not finances. We come in and we can help churches that are struggling financially. We can help position them. We've done it over and over and over again. We got some of the best leaders in America that partner with us to coach a lot of these pastors. I'm in touch with these guys all the time. The thing that'll bring a church down is when a pastor gets unhealthy. Moral failure in the pulpit or leadership meltdown. It's when Matt thinks he's right and the elders think they're right and neither one of them's right. It splits a church, okay? So what we do is we do everything we can to keep this guy in relationship. I know he's got a great relationship with other ICOC people, but we also want you to be involved with people, across the country. We do the conferences that you guys have been a part of. We provide, well, for example, the first thing our CEO did when COVID hit was he picked up the phone. A lot of, by the way, CEOs of financial institutions, none of them did this. He's the only guy in America that did this. He called a guy named Dr. Wes Beavis and said, Wes was a former minister in the Christian church. He went back to school, got his PhD in clinical psychology. He wrote a best-selling book on ministry burnout. He regularly also takes care of military that's coming back that have PTSD. He's a brilliant man. He said, Wes, I want to hire you to take care of our pastors because COVID's going to be a dark time. And there was at one point, he was working with 80 ministry couples, helping them with everything from anxiety to depression to marital issues. Do you know it? Have you ever talked to Wes? Yeah. He's available to all of our pastors. He's a brilliant guy, isn't he? And that's one of the things we do to keep the pastors healthy. We make that available. We start seeing a pastor start to isolate. That's not a good thing. We just make sure that doesn't happen. I was a minister for 30 years, and so I try to build relationships with the ministers, make sure they're doing well. That's something that banks aren't going to do. They just don't have the resources. They don't work with churches. They don't understand churches. And we know well over 95% of churches will not ever get a bank loan. Banks, it doesn't fit their model because we aren't selling anything. Everything's voluntary, right? And so it's a hard model for them. And so they could kind of shy away from the churches. And so in a lot of cases, we're the only ones out there that can help them with that. Does that answer your question to a degree? Okay. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the one on the anytime access, that's a minimum of $2,000. And then on the other side, that's a minimum of $250. Now you've got some rates in there that people already have that says it's above that. That's for because anytime access has to be new money, we aren't going to move it around. So if somebody already has 50,000 with us, it's going to stay in that one, and that's the rate they're going to get. Does that make sense? Okay. Uh-huh. Yes, ma'am. 120%. No, there's not a number. There's not a number. I think it's more, it goes back and forth. And like I said earlier, if you all have to have a loan, but we don't have the excess cash to lend to you, we're going to ask for you all to raise what your loan is in deposits. But if we do have the money, then the expectation is less. What gets our attention are churches that step up in a big way and say, we want to partner, we want to build these churches, we want to meet this need across the country. It's hard to put a number on that. It's more of a feel. It gives me a podium when I go before the loan committee and say, we got to help this church. Look at what they're doing. These people have stepped up. They're going to continue to step up. You got to help me out, okay? That's what I'm going to say. Help me out. Help me present you guys in a good way to this committee so we can get you guys taken care of. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I just talked to Darren Overstreet, working with Jack's church, and I talked to Will today, Archer. Of course, he's not there at Anchor. Well, he's still there, but he's not the lead guy. But I talked to Will. Yeah, we work with several of the churches across the country. Absolutely. Yes, ma'am. Uh-huh. Well, it started 15 years ago. Doug Crozier, who had been he came out of the banking world, and he had led a church extension fund on the West Coast for about 15 years. And then they wanted Doug. There were two big churches. One is called Christ Church of the Valley, the one I said earlier, a guy named Don Wilson, and another guy at a church in Texas called Crossroads Church, a guy named Barry Cameron. They got with Doug and said, we want you to start a new fund. And so both churches gave $250,000. So they started with $50,000, and they just grew up from there. And I will say this, Doug Crozier, who is now retiring, he'll be retired by the end of this year. In the last 25 years, 30 years, there is no person in America, all denominations, that's even close to how many churches Doug has got into buildings. Doug's got more churches into buildings than anybody in America by a long shot. But so it's grown very, very rapidly. I've been with Solomon for about 10 years, and they asked me to come into the Southeast because we hadn't moved into the Southeast yet. And the Southeast has really grown. It's really been remarkable. A lot of great churches in the Southeast. Hey, sure thing. Thank you. I'm getting a call.
Okay, well, there's Doug Crozier calling you right now. Tell him you're doing a presentation right now. So, guys, thank you so much for your attention. Hopefully, this has opened your eyes to kind of what we've been trying to experience with Solomon. And that question was like, what would be the difference between going with a typical bank and the Solomon Foundation? It's just that a typical bank wouldn't loan to us. We went down that road, and that's when we ran into Solomon Foundation, hearing it from somebody through somebody else. So we've been working with them for quite some time. And I think got to Sam's table eventually, and he introduced us to the Solomon Foundation. So we've been trying to do, have a relationship with them. There are other people in our church here that are invested with the Solomon Foundation. Dina and I are, and a couple others that have decided just to kind of go and, partner up with them, and because they know where their money's going. I think that's a big deal, is that, it's not going to build a bar or something that, you may not believe in, but you didn't even know that your money was doing those things. But to get with Solomon Foundation, it just feels good to know that, hey, we're building restoration churches. That's really cool. So that's a big part of it too. But anyway, guys, thank you so much. We're going to have one last song.